Okay, guys, so let's get started with the session without any further ado. I guess there's no one else who's supposed to be joining us today. And before we get started, a quick formal introduction on my name is Mohammed Shoaib. I'm a cybersecurity trainer certified from EC Council. EC Council is the leading organization for trainings and certifications in the domain of cybersecurity. Okay, and again, I've had an experience of almost 5 years for now in the training and certification department, and I've also worked as a SOC analyst before that. And yeah, the demo we're going to be taking in today's class is for the main primary or the introductory course called Certified Ethical Hacking. Okay, and the version running right now is version 12, the latest one. And every year the version gets updated. Now, this is a course for people who are completely new to this domain, guys, who are new to the complete concept of cybersecurity. So before we dive deep into it, let's talk about a few basic important terms. Okay, let's try to understand what is hacking in the first place and what is ethical hacking, and how are they different from one another. Okay, so when you talk about hacking, this is the procedure of trying to gain access to information systems. Now, these information systems could be anything. They could be as small as a mobile phone to as big as a web application server or a database. Okay, and what I mean by gaining access is that you can remotely control those devices or remotely access the data on those devices without authorization. So you're not given any permission, you're not given any consent to access the data on that device, but you still have complete information on it. Okay, and this is usually performed by hackers for their own benefit. Once they get access to the data, they can steal it, destroy it, or even sell it to other third-party vendors. And sometimes hackers are just so cruel, they even do it just for fun. Now, if hacking is such a malicious task or a criminalistic job, why do we have a course called ethical hacking? Is the second question. And what is this ethical hacking? How is hacking becoming ethical in the first place? Okay, so when you talk about ethical hacking, it is the procedure of trying to find vulnerabilities. Now, this term called vulnerability is something that you keep on hearing throughout the course. So to define it out, a vulnerability is a loophole, a flaw, or a weakness in the security of the application or the device. Okay, and using these weaknesses only, hackers try to exploit or take advantage of them and attack the systems. So our job in ethical hacking is to find these vulnerabilities or loopholes in the information systems with the consent of the organization or the person owning those systems. And again, you follow all the rules and regulations and the policies set by the organization and work hand in hand with them. So there's complete transparency between you and the company or the client, and you're trying to find the vulnerabilities before the hackers so that you can report it back to them. And once the vulnerabilities have been reported to the organization, they can rectify them or patch them up. Once the vulnerabilities are patched, you're increasing the security and you're closing the doorway for the hackers. So thereby, with ethical hacking, you're trying to increase the security of the infrastructure rather than cause any harm. Now, depending on these two definitions, guys, hacking and ethical hacking, we can categorize the types of hackers. So there's someone known as a black hat hacker, then a gray hat hacker, and then a white hat hacker. Black hat hackers are also commonly called as cyber criminals. They're someone who perform hacking for their own benefit, okay, without asking for consent. On the other end of the spectrum, we have someone called as a white hat hacker. White hat hackers are also commonly known as ethical hackers or also penetration testers. These are the people who perform hacking or ethical hacking for the benefit of the organization. You're not trying to take advantage out of it. You're only trying to increase the security of the infrastructure. And in between, there's a third category called gray hat hackers. Now, these are quite mysterious hackers. They have both the qualities of black hat as well as white hat hackers. So like a black hat hacker, they don't ask for permission, but once they find a vulnerability, like a white hat hacker, they report it back to the organization. Now, there's a minor catch here over here. They don't do this for free. They do it in return for something called as a bounty. A bounty is any reward which benefits them for finding the vulnerability. It could be a financial reward, it could be a reputational reward, anything which gives them recognition or financial help. Okay. So all these three types of hackers, right, whether you take black hat hackers, gray hat hackers, or white hat hackers, are professional hackers who perform hacking or ethical hacking using a certain procedure. And in our course, Certified Ethical Hacking, we're going to learn exactly what that procedure is. Okay. So that procedure is called as hacking cycle or cyber kill chain. And this procedure has 5 important steps. Now, before I go through those 5 steps, guys, I want to ask if you have any questions. So again, important point guys, if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, please feel free to interrupt me at any certain point and ask your questions, guys. No hesitation. So is it clear up to here, guys? Any questions or doubts up to this point? Deepak, Fayaz, Shudai, Padmalata, Pintu. Guys, are you there? Can you hear me? Am I audible? Oh, perfect. Yes. Thank you so much for that. Right. Now, let's talk about the hacking cycle, guys, and the main procedure and what steps it contains, because throughout the course, we're going to be working on these steps itself. Okay. So the first step is called as information gathering. It can also be called as reconnaissance or footprinting as well. So these are the names for the first step mentioned by various organizations. Second step is called as scanning. It can also be called as enumeration. Third step is gaining access. Fourth step is maintaining access. And the last step is reporting or clearing traces. Now, if you carefully observe here, only in the last step, I've mentioned that OR word, OR. Okay, the reason being, no matter what kind of hacker you take, whether it be a white hat hacker, gray hat hacker, or a black hat hacker, all the hackers perform the first 4 steps the similar way. So no matter what hacking you take, the first 4 steps are pretty common. There's no change in it. What varies is only the end result. Okay, so if you're a white hat hacker, you try to report the vulnerabilities found to the organization itself. If you're a black hat hacker, on the other hand, you don't report anything, obviously. You try to take advantage out of it and you try to go anonymous. You try to hide yourself. And that is known as clearing traces, removing all the evidences. Okay, clearing the footprints, clearing all the logs, deleting the logs, all that falls under clearing traces. Okay. Now, 1 second, guys. Oh, nothing, never mind. So yeah, as I was mentioning, so now these are the 5 important steps, guys. So after this, now let's talk about each of these steps one by one, so you have a better idea about the complete course. Okay. So the first step is called as information gathering. From the name itself, you can figure out this is a step which involves the hacker or the ethical hacker to find as much information or as much data as possible about the target organization. Okay. And this information is gathered passively, guys. What I mean by that is this information is gathered from third-party sources. You do not contact the organization in any way. All the information is gathered from the internet itself. Okay, and the various websites on the internet. Now, the main question here is, what kind of information are we trying to gather? When we want to attack a target organization or perform penetration on a target organization, what is the requirement? Okay. So to list that out, here's that information. So firstly, we need to figure out what are the IP addresses or the range of IP addresses used by the target organization. So every organization has its own servers, has its own websites. So all of those websites are hosted on physical servers, and each of those servers gets a public IP. So you need to figure out what is that IP address. Okay, what is the identity for those devices. Then you need to figure out the who's records. This information gives you the data on who is hosting the website for them. When was it first hosted? When was it last updated? When will it expire? Okay, when do they need to renew their domain name? All that information is stored in the host records. Then the DNS records. This contains the information of the DNS servers. So every organization has many subdomains and domains, and each of it has an IP address. So getting that link, which domain belongs to which IP, all that linking is found from the DNS servers. Then you have employee details. Oh, the second, guys, give me a minute. So sorry for that interruption. Yep. So the next thing you need is employee details, so such as contact numbers, email addresses, fax numbers of the organization, and if possible, the office location details. Okay, where is it located all around the world? How many offices are there for that certain organization? All that comes under contact details. Then the domains of the website, the subdomains of the website, and if possible, the publicly leaked or data leaked usernames and passwords. Now, this might seem like very huge information, guys, but believe it or not, all of this is available on the internet itself, and anyone can access it for free. Okay, you just need to know what those specific websites are from where you can get this information. So if I show you a very basic example, I can go to my browser, and in the browser, I can search for a website called DNS Dumpster. And when I click on the first link, this opens this website called DNS Dumpster. So this is the website that is used to give you the DNS records for any company. So for example, if I search for netflix.com as an example, and if I click on search, this starts providing me the list of all the IPs and the subdomains of Netflix. So first it tells us where Netflix servers are located. Most of them are in Central America, and Netflix has 4 DNS servers. Okay, so 1 primary and 3 secondary DNS servers. Okay, these DNS servers contain all this information, the rest of the information. So these IPs are very important, guys. For a hacker or an ethical hacker, these are the IP addresses. Okay, numerical as you can see, 4 column numbers. Okay, with dots in between. These are called as IP addresses. We'll discuss about them later on. Don't worry. Okay, but for now, these IPs are the identities for each of these websites. Okay, or these servers. And these IPs are very important for a hacker, and they're very crucial. Okay, and now after that, you have the MX records. This shows you how many mail servers does Netflix have. So Netflix is using Google email itself and has 5 mail servers, as you can see. And again, these are the devices through which all the mails for Netflix are being routed. Scroll down much further. This is the main domain of Netflix. Okay, and this is the exact IP on which Netflix is being hosted. And these are all the subdomains of Netflix, one by one, and their IP addresses. Okay, so these IPs are the most crucial to get started with hacking or penetration testing. And if you keep scrolling down, this gives me the complete information on Netflix organization. So these are all the domains, the subdomains, whatnot. So we have a complete network topology as well of Netflix organization. Okay, so when you want to perform a comprehensive test, a complete test of Netflix organization, these are the list of all the servers and the IPs you have to check the security of. Okay, so it's a huge job. Okay, and there's a lot of requirement. There's a lot of demand for these cybersecurity jobs because each company has many domains, many subdomains, and so one person testing all of it is not a practical thing. Okay, so again, as day by day progresses, each and every organization has their own website. Okay, even before the organization has a physical office, they first create a website. Okay, and every organization needs security for the website. So again, there's a lot of domains, there's a lot of subdomains you need to check the security for, and therefore there's a huge demand for these jobs of cybersecurity. Okay, now coming back to this, guys, so this is how you can gather information. What we have seen is only one singular example. For each of these parts, we have a separate website again. Okay, so as we progress in our classes, I'm going to show you what those gold mines are, from where you can gather this information for free. Now, a very commonly asked question by students is, sir, will we be tracked? Is this information illegal? No, nothing is illegal here. This is publicly available and anyone can access it for free without any trouble. Okay. In fact, Netflix itself needs to provide this information to the internet, but not many people know how to access that information or what are the websites from which you can access it. So I'll be sharing all those resources of how to gather this information from the internet for free. Okay. Now, after information gathering is done, guys, then we go with the next phase, which is scanning. Okay, so scanning is the next part where you try to get some extra information, but by making active connections. Okay, what I mean by active connections is that you directly contact the target server and get the extra information. Now, your main question could be, we have already gathered that much information. What more extra is needed? Okay, so to answer that, I have to explain the types of scanning. So there's 3 types of scanning. First, network scanning, port scanning, and vulnerability scanning. So in information gathering, you got the list of all the publicly available devices on the internet. But in an organization, they can have locally or in their intranet or in the local network, they can have other devices as well. Okay. So with network scanning, we can try to figure out on their local network, how many routers are there, how many switches are they using, how many firewalls do they have, how many client operating systems do they have. All that is found from network scanning. In their local network, how many actual devices are existing. Okay. Once you know the list of all the devices in their organization, next thing is port scanning, trying to figure out on each of those devices what ports are open, and on those ports what services or what applications are running. And once you know the ports and the services, final part is vulnerability scanning, where you try to figure out on those services or on those applications, is there any weakness? Is there any vulnerability that you can attack on? Right? So it's a step-by-step procedure. First, you get the IPs. From the IPs, you perform network scanning. From them, you figure out on active devices or alive devices what ports are open, and on those ports what services are running, and any of the service is attackable or not. Okay. So during this phase, guys, you're using a very important tool called Nessus. So if you go to your browser, if you search for Tenable Nessus, this is one important tool that we have. Okay, and again, this is the same tool that is used in real-time organizations as well. Quite expensive too. As you can see, it's around $6,000. That too for 1 year subscription. $6,000 is like 5,888 USD. US dollars is like to INR. As you can see, it's like 5 lakhs, around 4 lakhs 82,000. But luckily for us, there's a trial version available, guys. So we'll learn on the trial version how to use this tool in our organization. Okay. So again, after this tool is done, then we go with the next phase, which is gaining access. Okay. So now this is the main core of the subject, guys. So after you have gathered all the information, next thing is attacking with that information. So that is called as gaining access. And then during this phase, we'll attack on each and every endpoint. So we'll be covering each and every endpoint, such as, again, let me list it out. These are the list of topics. So first thing we'll cover system hacking, where we learn how to hack or crack the password of a Windows operating system. So if you have Windows 10, Windows 11, or even older Windows, Windows 7 or anything, how do you crack the password for that? And if you're unable to crack it, if it's too tough to crack, how can you bypass it without entering any password? How can you get access to the internal files of the system is what we learn in system hacking. Then comes malware attacks. Malware is nothing but malicious software. And there's many categories of malwares. There's viruses, worms, trojans, spyware, rootkit, whatnot. So using these malwares, you can remotely control other systems. You can access their camera, you can access their screen, you can see what they're doing on their system. So again, we learn how to practically create each of these malwares and also the defense techniques. How do you detect malwares on your own system? How to remove these malwares from your own system or from organizations and so on and so on. Then there's a bonus concept, malware advanced. This is not included, guys, in the CH curriculum from EC Council. We have added it so students have a better understanding of malwares. Okay, so I'll be sharing an extra course, a paid course to you for free, where you learn where you can learn Python as well, and you can also understand how to create malwares using Python programming. Then comes network penetration testing, the next part, where we learn in a network what all devices exist, and on those devices, how do you perform attacks or penetration testing. Okay, so you can perform attacks like MITM or DOS attacks. With these attacks, you can shut down servers, you can access the data of other users in the network, you can see or read their usernames and passwords that they're typing, or you can hack Wi-Fi routers. All this comes under network penetration testing. Then comes social engineering, where we learn how hackers create fake websites, okay, fake social media pages, fake bank login pages, and how they get the credentials of attackers or victims. Okay. Then comes web application penetration testing, where we learn what are the common website attacks. So even websites have a few weaknesses. To list out a few, there's SQL injection, cross-site scripting, broken authentication, and so on. So to give a brief on them, we can try to attack databases, get access to the backend databases, execute malicious scripts on the website, or log into other users using their cookies. All those attacks come under web application penetration testing. During this tool or this practical, we'll learn a very important tool called burp suite, guys. Okay. And finally, after that, we have hacking mobile phones, where we learn how to attack an Android phone and get a remote connection of it using malwares. Okay. Now, after all these topics are done, guys, when we have covered each and every endpoint, we have checked about system security, we have talked about network security, we have talked about Wi-Fi security, we have talked about web application security, and we're talking about Android security. We're discussing each and every endpoint. Not only just attacks, with every attack, I'm also going to show you how to defend from these attacks. Okay. So we're going to be learning both perspectives, both hacker perspective and ethical hacker perspective. Okay, we're going to be both the police and the thief as well, okay, during all these things. And this, in common terms, in cybersecurity terms, it's called as blue teaming and red teaming. Blue teaming is usually used to defend, the red team is used to attack. So we'll learn both the attacks and defenses. After this is done, guys, after gaining access is done, then come two other small topics. Again, next is maintaining access and reporting or clearing traces. So in maintaining access, we learn how we can maintain persistent connections. What I mean by that is, if the user restarts the system, how can you still access this device, okay, even after the system restarts. Okay. After that, the next thing is clearing traces, where I'll show you how hackers delete all the logs or how to generate a report. So if you're a white hat hacker or ethical hacker, how can you create a report and submit to the organization with a list of all the vulnerabilities. So we'll learn basic report writing. Okay. Again, not just these guys, since not everyone could be from a technical background, we have a few prerequisites as well, some extra bonus concepts as well. So first, before we dive into the main advanced core classes, we'll talk about networking basics. Okay, we'll talk what IP addresses are, what are IPv4 addresses, what are IPv6 addresses, what is the subnet mask, all that is discovered in networking. So you have a good understanding of networking. After that, we learn basic Linux and Windows commands, how to operate on Linux systems, because we need to install an operating system called Kali Linux, KALI.org. This comes pre-installed with all the penetration testing tools. That's why we need to install this operating system, guys. Again, if you're using Windows, don't worry at all about how to install Linux again. We have a tool called VMware, guys. So let me show you. I'll show you how to create a lab setup in your own system. And using that lab setup, you can install as many other operating systems as you want. Okay. And one of them that I'm running right Guys, can you hear me now? Am I audible now? I've tried connecting through a different audio device. Oh, can you hear me now, guys? Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, guys. So as I was mentioning, again, there seems to be some issue with my code too. I had to connect a new audio device and it got connected now. So again, as I was mentioning, guys, we'll talk about all those things. We'll talk about how to set up your virtual machine and all that. Okay, and after all those topics are done, only then we'll go into the advanced concepts, which I've mentioned here. Okay, so there's a few other bonus concepts as well, such as cryptography, reverse engineering, IoT, cloud security, and so on. So basics of all these. So you have a better understanding about the subject. Okay, these are mandatory concepts to learn or have at least basic knowledge on with cybersecurity. Okay, and yeah, again, coming back to the course duration, guys, the course is gonna be for 45 days. You'll have classes from Monday to Friday, every day for 1 hour each.